Hello wonderfuls, this is Milena. When I was scanning to look and see what would be the most beneficial information for us to discuss and share this week, there are two main messages that came through. And I wanted to share them with you because that's something that could be extremely helpful to us in dealing with everything that is going on in our lives right now. And when I say going on in our lives, I mean in our own personal lives, because everybody's going through stuff, as well as on a collective level. Those two messages, and the first one is to trust our path. And what does that mean? There is an internal compass that all of us have, and it's usually in our heart area where we feel that guidance, that feeling, that nudging of what direction we want to move into. And very often that doesn't really make much sense. When we scan it with our reason and with our minds and we look at if it makes sense, a lot of it actually doesn't make sense. And there's also a lot of fears that come up. Because that true path that we're following, that inner compass, is usually not what we expected it to be. And before we set ourselves on a journey, before we walk our path, very often we want to have a lot of clarity and assurance on the final destination. Where are we going? We want to draw the map. We want to know all of the steps that we need to take and then set on our journey. However, this is the main thing that is changing in terms of how we have been constructing our reality, because we're no longer going to do that exactly. And very often our true path is taking us to something that we're not able to see at that moment. And it requires trusting every step and just taking the step that we feel inspired to take, that it will eventually get us there. It's accepting the idea that we need to trust our own inner guidance and just take that next step that we feel guided and inspired to take. And knowing that along the journey, things will change and steps will take us in unexpected directions. But trusting and knowing that the results would be much better and beyond what we could have imagined from that original standpoint. Now, there are a lot of fears that come up because what we are used to doing is we have built things and we have done things based on the operating system of fear and the struggle for survival. So, well, in order to kind of ensure ourselves, we need to know all the steps, we need to take precautionary measures, we need to make sure what all the steps are, we need to make sure that we have food, and we need to plan everything. Planning is not terrible necessarily. It can be very good. But having the flexibility that those plans not only can, but will oftentimes change is very important in order to allow ourselves to get to that really amazing positive result. Now, what we do is we usually judge it as something really negative. Oh my God, my plan is falling apart. Things are not happening the way I had planned them. This must be a terrible thing. I'm in danger. I need to fix things and I need to go back on track to the way I had planned things. But what that does is that creates a feeling of struggle, of hardship, of stress, and of fear. That things are not moving in a positive direction and that eventually you or other people as well will suffer from it and will pay a hefty price for it. That is simply not true. And the sooner we gain that understanding and allow our inner compass, trust ourselves basically, to guide us through all the steps, we will get to where we need to be. Whatever you feel nudged and inspired to do, just take that little step every day. Because imagine what's going to happen in a year when you look back and how much you will have moved. We know we're moving in the right direction. You will get signals if you're kind of moving astray from your path, because it's going to start feeling like a struggle. It's going to create feelings of hardship. And that is purely a signal, hey, this doesn't have to be difficult. It's not the struggle. It's not exactly the most resonant path for you. Find that flow and sense of ease and excitement and follow that. There's no way that can lead you to something that is ultimately negative for you. It's just a law in the universe and it can't possibly happen. But that said, very often we judge what is happening as something negative. Because a lot of it, and that's the second message that I was talking about, is crumbling. And the message is let it crumble. A lot of things are starting to dissolve, to crumble, to fall away from our experience. It could be our jobs, what we've been doing. It could be a way in we've been approaching things. It could be our relationships, our spouses, our friendships, a lot of those things. And when they start falling apart, we think that our lives are falling apart, and we think that that's a horrible thing that is happening to us. And we're thinking, oh my God, my whole world is falling apart. What am I doing wrong? Why is this happening to me? And that judgment, seeing things in that light, creates a lot of suffering and hardship within us. But what this is doing is simply removing the things from our experience that no longer serve us, so that new and wonderful and amazing things can enter into our lives and we can't create them. And that can be scary, and we will get emotions, and we will get feelings around it. We will get sadness, and all of us individually, in one way or another, are going through something that is falling apart. This is not a negative thing. We can always process the emotions. We can use the processing exercise, allow them to express and exist in our field, and basically leave our field the way they have come, moved through us, basically, as opposed to allowing them to dictate our actions. So whatever it is that is falling apart, we can simply let it go. And the sooner we do this, the less resistance we provide, the easier it will be for us. It's like the story of the apple that I always say. I'm holding an apple in my hand, and it's not the kind of apple that I like, but I'm thinking, maybe I don't even like apples, but I'm thinking, well, it's much better to hold on to that than to end up with nothing. Right? Because I have that fear that, if I let this go, I might not have anything else. And there's this leap of faith. There's that moment that basically, and I'm just using this as a metaphor, that is happening for all of us right now, is we're clearing that space. And now it's that moment when we have that empty space and we're thinking, oh my gosh, is something going to come? It absolutely must, because we're the ones who created the first apple in the first place, through our programs and belief systems and everything. And we're the ones who are going to create the new thing. It doesn't have to happen overnight, and it usually doesn't. There's a saying that says Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's true. But it's taking that little step, that little nudge every single day. And we will be amazed a year from now, 2 or 3 years from now, how much has changed and transformed beyond our bravest imagination and expectations. And if you're still struggling with some things that are crumbling in your life and you're not quite sure how to handle them, book a session at askmilena.com. Remember to subscribe to my newsletter to stay connected and be notified of future events, as well as subscribe to the channel down below. Click on the bell so that you can get notified of all new videos, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye, guys.